Hey everybody, this is my 20-gallon open-topped office tank, and I've got a new fish in here. This is a long-finned German blue ram, and it's really got interesting colors on it. I got a little bit of a story behind it, and so we can have a look at it while we discuss how I wound up getting this fish. I wasn't really going to get a German blue ram, but I wound up doing that anyway. I've always wanted one, and now I finally got one. And it's really, again, it's an interesting looking ram. It's got sort of unusual coloring on it than I've seen before, and I'm really interested to see what its fins are going to do. Its ventral fins, you can already tell, are sort of elongated, and they're starting to get dark bands across the leading edge. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I just can't wait to see this fish sort of grow out and grow into its own. So I talked about getting a GBR in this tank for a little while, and I got a lot of different opinions from people. And the two schools of thought I got were I needed to keep the water temperature a lot higher than I normally do in my tanks. And the other argument was that I would need to keep the nitrates and the dissolved solids lower than I normally do in most of my tanks. I'm not really known for keeping really super low nitrates and really low dissolved solids. I have fish tanks that I like to think of as being lived in. And, the nitrates regularly get up to 50, 60, 80 parts per million. That's not unusual. And I've been told by a lot of people over the years that GBRs are one of those fish that just really can't tolerate being in higher levels of nitrates. Let's see if we can get a look at them from above. And so that was always a concern of mine. I didn't really want to get a fish that really couldn't be in above 20 or 30 parts per million nitrates, which is the sort of going theory. I hear that a lot. Anything above 20 or 30 parts per million nitrates is way too much for a GBR. So I spoke with a couple of people at the fish store, professionals whose opinions I trust, including the owner of the fish store, the guy that sold, or I should actually say gave me this fish. But again, we'll get to that in a minute. And I got to talking to them about it. And every time I mentioned with both of the people I spoke to, when I mentioned the nitrates getting, would nitrates above 20 parts per million be a problem, they both kind of looked at me like they didn't really even understand my question. And they got, why would that be a problem? And when I started talking to them and having more of a conversation about it with them, both of them agreed that 30, 40, 50 parts per million nitrates aren't going to hurt a GBR any more than they're going to hurt these guppies in there, because, as I always say, the nitrates really are just the boogeyman of the aquarium hobby. Everybody's afraid of them. They get, blamed for all kind of terrible things, but in reality, there's really not much to be scared of when it comes to nitrates. And so I was assured that the reason I had issues with the GBRs in the past that I got was because I was trying to keep them in room temperature tanks, and I was told that as long as you keep the water above 82 to 83 degrees, somewhere between 83 and 85 degrees would be fine. I can go all the way up as much as 86, 87 degrees if I wanted, and that wouldn't be an issue for the fish either. So I spoke with the owner at length about it. We had a whole conversation about how I keep fish, and of course he's known me for years. I've been buying fish and shooting video and stuff down there forever. And so kind of at the end of the conversation, when I agreed I would go ahead and, give it a shot, I would take his advice and we would try it. I told him I needed to run out to my truck to grab my wallet, and he told me not to worry about it. And so I was gifted this GBR, and we're going to see how it turns out. It's actually, honestly, it's not the one I would have picked. It's growing on me, but I swear it's got unusual colors for what I've seen in a GBR. Now, they do have a lot of tanks down there at the fish store that have different German blue rams. They've got like the balloon bellies and the electric blues. They had some that I wanted that were yellow-faced electric blues, and they were stunning. But they were expensive. They were more expensive than the regular ones, which were fairly expensive to begin with. And so we wound up walking down the aisle. We looked in a few of the different tanks, and I said, all I want is just a regular old standard issue, standard paint job German Blue Ram. And so we settled on the tank that had what to me looked like a bunch of regular old blue and yellow German Blue Rams. And he scooped one out for me after a few minutes and held up the bag, and he says, how's this one look? And I honestly didn't really look at it. I just kind of looked to see that it looked good and healthy. And I said, that looks great, thanks. I didn't want to look a gift fish in the mouth. And so I wasn't going to complain and say, no, I don't want that one. Give me one of these other better looking ones. And so I just said, yeah, that's cool. And this is what I wound up bringing home. And now that it's been in the tank for a week or so and it's starting to get some color really developing and its behavior is normalized, it's definitely used to being in the tank now. It's feeding regularly. I really feel like we're past any, danger zone of having to worry about whether or not it's going to take to the tank or it's going to thrive or do well. It certainly seems to be. And its colors are really starting to brighten up. I can't wait to see what this looks like as it grows and matures. But getting back to the fact that it looks a little unusual, when I was at the store the other day getting the other new fish that I have not yet really shown anybody, again, except for people on my Patreon page have seen my new fish downstairs, but nobody else has yet. That'll be coming very soon. By the end of the weekend, I won't have any more secrets left to share with my fish tanks, but this is the first public look at my GBR. I've had this one for longer, and so I thought we would get this one out there sooner. But when I was down there picking up those other fish, I looked at the tank this one came out of just to see what it said and find out if there was something unusual about it. And it did indeed say that it was a long-finned German Blue Ram. And I swear when I look in the tank, every fish in that tank looked to me like just a regular old bluish and yellowish GBR. And yet this one's got all that orange on its fins, and it's got that sort of yellowy orange face. It looks really different to me. I don't know, maybe it's my imagination. I just don't have a lot of experience with them. But to me, this one looks very unusual. But anyway you slice it, I'm really happy with it. And again, the fact that it was gifted to me is all the better. I was really excited about that. That was very kind of him. So there you go, everybody. That's the big reveal of my new GBR. My temple plant is growing out of control in this tank once again. I'm actually going to get in here, and if you can see these sort of corners right there, I know it's kind of hard to see what's going on under the water, but if you look at it, you can see where it's got root development, and I can get in there and cut, if I can get the glare of my hand off the camera. I can get in there and make some cuts and actually get some cuttings that have roots established on them already, and then we can actually start sort of compacting this down even more. I want to get it denser and bushier because it's already grown up so big again now that it's blocking a lot of the light from the tank, and you just don't really get all of the beautiful, stunning, sparkling effect that you do off of cichlids. And of course my guppies in there are always beautiful when they're down swimming around in that light. So a little too much shade, a little too much shadow coming down from the swamp weed is another name for my temple plant there. And so we're going to have to do something about that. But there you go. There's an update on my 20-gallon office tank. That is a look at my new long-finned GBR. Make sure you're subscribed. That way you don't miss any of the updates on this fish or any of my other tanks. And you don't want to miss the new fish I've got downstairs and the big reveal that's going to be coming up on that in a couple of days. So again, if you're subscribed, you won't miss any of that. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget this one here is my 20-gallon office tank. I'll see you real soon in the next one.